Hey guys, Diz Life Marc here, and I want to tell you all about the official travel partner here at Chip & Company. Let our good friend Sarah at Destination to Travel help you plan your next Disney vacation. Sarah specializes in planning dream vacations for your family. She's an authorized Disney vacation planner, and she can help with every step of your magical vacation. The best thing is that her services are 100% free. Want to travel beyond Disney? Sarah has you covered there too. Want to find out more? Fill out a trip request form over at the website at Chip & Co. or email her directly at sarahsolberg@d2travel.com. What are you waiting for? Start planning that dream vacation today. Email her at sarahsolberg@d2travel.com.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Greetings, program.
Amigos down there. It is me up here.
Howdy, folks. Please keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the train and remain seated at all times.
Nice work, pal.
Well, we have one of those new talking machines. Now that is something.
We know what our goals are. We know what we hope to accomplish. And believe me, it's the most exciting and challenging assignment we've ever tackled.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Diz Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of our Disney lives here on the Chip & Company Podcast Network. My name is Marc Valentine, and I'm the host of Diz Life Podcast. Just a reminder to join us weekly as we discuss the very best from Disney parks, resorts, dining, and beyond. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to access more incredible audio content from the Chip & Company Podcast Network. Just a reminder, head over to chipandco.com for the latest and the most uplifting of headlines from across the Disney parks around the world. Special shout out, as always, to the patrons of this podcast program, the members of our Patreon page who have special access to bonus content, VIP live streams, and much more. And you can support this radio program by visiting us at patreon.com/DizLifePodcast. It is a huge milestone today for the Chip & Company Podcast Network of shows. This show today marks the 100th podcast episode that has aired as a part of this network. I wanted to congratulate Greg and Chip for this incredible milestone, and I am honored that Diz Life gets the opportunity to celebrate this podcasting benchmark for the fastest growing podcast network in the Disney community. Let's welcome in Mr. 100 himself to the podcast, the one and only Greg the Disney Fanatic, my co-host here at Diz Life Podcast, and the only man who has been a part of all 100 of those episodes here on the Chip & Company Podcast Network. Greg, welcome to the show. How does it feel to do 100 episodes of podcasting, my friend?
Oh, hoy, hoy there, Marc Valentine. It is International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
I forgot.
And I don't know how long I can do this, so I'm going to stop right now when I can get the voice out of my head.
Well, matey, you could do it longer, but then the rating of the podcast would become R-rated.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful joke. That
Thank you.
Threw me right off because all of a sudden I lost all my pirate jokes.
I'll be here all day.
Thank you. Man, 100 episodes.
100 episodes of Chip & Company podcasts.
I am blown away by that. I'm blown away by that number. We started off very small. We started off with just a few episodes. It is picked up here at the Chip & Company Podcast Network. One of the special things, obviously, was bringing in Diz Life and bringing in you. You have made this so much better. On top of working with Mr. Chip Confer, it has been a dream come true. And to hit 100, I sent this in a text to you earlier. I'm really proud of being 100 episodes in.
And dude, it's something you should definitely be proud of. 100's not an easy milestone. And just to give it a little bit of perspective, this is since March. So like you guys, I think dabbled very, very small in the end of February, the waning days of February, but it was really March. For all intents and purposes, March was when you guys launched this thing. And here we are, only a few months later. You guys are crushing it on downloads. It's just, and we're having a great time, which is the biggest metric by which we measure all of what we're doing here. We just love the three of us and the friendship and the podcasting. But dude, I need to know. So two questions before we get into today's topic. Just a little quick banter. It's been a few months. You never fashioned yourself a podcaster. Well, guess what? That's over. You are one now, whether you like it or not. What have you learned about podcasting and radio that you never envisioned? Reflecting on 100 episodes, what is it about podcasting? What have you learned? What knowledge have you gleaned now as a radio host?
Wow, what a great question. The best thing I've learned is how to stop and think about what we're going to talk about. When we discuss anything, especially like on An Company or here at Diz Life, it's nice to just stop. Instead of just mouthing off about everything, it's okay to stop and think about what you're going to say.
Yes.
And it's actually turned over into real life where I now will have a conversation with somebody. Instead of just agreeing or not agreeing, I will stop and think about what they're saying and actually listen to what other people are saying. So I think the biggest thing I've learned is how to listen. I know it's so corny to say that, but
no,
I can now listen and have a conversation with somebody.
I love that. And that is such a profound thing to have happened as a result of making radio.
I've also learned that I can talk a whole lot.
Yes,
I can just talk about anything endlessly for many hours on end.
Present company included in that statement. So 100 episodes, man. What are you most excited about for the next 100? Like, what is in store for the Chip and Company Podcast Network moving forward? Any announcements? Any sneak peeks? Or are you gonna hide your hand a little bit longer? Are you gonna hide your pocket cards, or are you ready to turn anything over and show? Are you gonna call?
There's nothing I can call, but there may be one or two things down the pipeline here that we are really excited about. Other things I'm really excited about is our production value has picked up from day one to where we are now, with you on board, with Chip on board, and to be quite honest, getting Chip to believe in podcasting, and he has come out of his shell. And you are amazing to talk to, either as a co-host on An Company or as the host of Diz Life here. It's been amazing. So no, there's nothing that I can talk about that is in stone, but there are some really cool things, and I'm really excited about just getting out there.
And he's not bluffing. He's not bluffing. He has pocket aces. He's got pocket aces. He's not going to show
almost a full house.
Yeah, he's not going to show them yet, but I can tell you right now, he's got pocket aces. I didn't want to know. I didn't know if he was going to call, but you know what? It's cool. We'll check raise right now, because I know you've got the cards, and we don't have to go all in on today's episode. So what are we doing on today's episode? Well, again,
wait. I wanted to talk about the best parts of doing. I wanted to the funny moments. Like, we've had some amazing funny moments. I was hoping to talk about, I don't know, Idina Menzel or Hulk Hogan or the Corksicle Goblin. Like, but we can move past. Go ahead, Mark. It's your show. I'm here as I'm your Squiggy to your Lenny.
For those who have not gotten a chance to go and check out that content, that older content, here's what we've learned, ladies and gentlemen, that Idina Menzel was very happy during Harmonious, that Hulk Hogan is a really nice guy, that Award Wieners is probably the greatest titling of any eatery in any park ever, amongst other things. But one of the things that I love about the Chip and Company Podcast Network is sometimes when we start talking, you really, truly never know what is going to come out of this man's mouth right here. But when you and Chip start to go on your tangents, man, it is truly something to behold. So.
Can I just say, some of those tangents, you, my friend, know how to hold a conversation. You are amazing at podcasting. But when Chip and I go off, I've never seen you back out of a conversation so quickly where you're like, nope.
I straight up Homer. It's very appropriate that I was charged with handling the Simpsons panel, because I Homer Simpson out of a conversation better than anyone, where there's that GIF where you just see Homer Simpson just slink out and go right into the bush. That is quite literally me on so many occasions when we would do the entertainment and review podcast. And these guys would just start going off on something. And I'd be like, and I'm out. Bye, guys. I'm out.
Marc is left the building. He has been Elvised on us on the podcast. I do want to say one final thing about doing 100 episodes of the Chip and Company Podcast Network. I would not have a voice. I would not have anything to say if it weren't for all the fans who subscribe, who who like, thumbs up. If it wasn't for people actually listening to an episode, I would not have a platform. You would not have a platform.
Hear.
Chip and Company Podcast Network would not have a platform. So to everyone who has listened to any one of the episodes in the past 100 episodes, I really mean this. Thank you.
Yes. Cheers to you guys. Thank you for tuning in every single week. Thank you for the feedback that you provide to us. Thank you to the Diz Lifers who came and made the move and jumped over with us to the Chip and Company Podcast Network. We do this for you guys. And so it really is a labor of love for you guys, the listeners, and for the fans. We really appreciate it. All right, man. So on today's episode, we're not just celebrating 100 episodes of the Chip and Company podcasting, but we are also going to talk about our favorite milestones from the Walt Disney Company, which is celebrating its 100-year anniversary in 2023 with 100 Years of Wonder, and talking about our favorite parks, our favorite memories, and more from our lifetime spent as Disney fans. So while we celebrate with the kickoff as part of this New Year's Rockin' Eve, that's when the 100 will officially kick off.
With Ryan Seacrest, my man.
With Ryan Seacrest. Disney has already started to gear up, though, for the 100 years as part of D23, when Josh D'Amaro took to the stage and shared that the heart of the celebration is going to take place in the Disneyland Resort, and then starting in late 2023, the parks are going to be infused with platinum colors, new shows, new fireworks, and other magical moments to mark the 100 years of wonder. So we've already gotten a sneak peek. So today, Greg and I are going to be recapping our personal favorites from the 100 Years of Wonder, along with some of our top moments in the past 100 years, but also sharing some of our favorite park stuff that this is, again, Diz Life is sort of reborn, and it's a chance for us to rebrand and talk about what we love and our absolute favorites. So, Greg, we have developed a list of, I want to say, 10 items that we love from the 100-year celebration. I will turn it over to you. We agree on these wholeheartedly. Let's go through the 10 most influential according to Diz Life, and let's talk about those moments that we just get all of the feels from when we talk about the 100 Years of Wonder with the Walt Disney World Company. They are in no particular order, but I will say I think this first one really should come first.
Right. Obviously, we're going to start off at what we think has lasted 100 years, and it's like 97 years or 95 years, whatever it is. But the creation of Mickey Mouse himself and Steamboat Willie. Steamboat Willie is released in the Colony Theater in New York, the first Mickey Mouse cartoon released. Also, the very first appearance of Minnie Mouse, of all things. So the first things we should talk about when we talk about the Walt Disney Company, obviously, is the mouse himself, Mr. Mickey Mouse.
And it's very appropriate that we would, because even Walt himself has said, and it's become one of my favorite Waltisms, is that let us not forget that it all started with the mouse. There's something about Steamboat Willie that no matter, I mean, like, we're talking about a cartoon that was created in 1928, and it still gives people the feels. And I love how the Walt Disney Animation Studios, that their kickers and their tag almost always starts with the Steamboat Willie.
So I got a question for you. Do you remember the first time you saw Steamboat Willie?
I do.
Did it have any effect on you? Because I remember seeing it and it having an effect on me and going, okay, this is the first one that has sound. The first time you hear that whistle blow. The Gertie cartoons had come out obviously before that, and it was just movement and looked beautiful. But to have sound attached to it and to have the first squeak of Mickey and Minnie, what was it like when you first saw this?
Dude, that's a great question. Even as a kid, seeing Steamboat Willie made me realize, I mean, I was probably, the earliest time that I remember it, I want to say I was probably 6. But at the age of 6, it gave me a very profound feeling of how old Disney was. And how seeing Steamboat Mickey made me realize that Disney was a generational love and a generational passion, and that I was a part of a bigger thing. That my parents loved Disney. They raised me on Disney cartoons. They raised me as it was a Disney household. I remember as kids going to the Disney store and getting the mugs, and my mother collecting Disney mugs. We were one of the first people in our town to have the Disney Channel when that became available on cable, and mousercising. And Steamboat Willie.
My man, mousercise?
I was mousercising at 6 a.m, brother.
Cool.
But Steamboat Willie and Masterpiece Theater and the shorts, the Disney shorts from the 50s and the 60s, as a kid, it wasn't lost on me. And it's crazy. You're like, man, what kid has that deep sense of history? Growing up, I was a nerd, though. Like, I read Titanic books. I was into dinosaurs. I was into Disney history as a little kid. Seeing Steamboat Willie made me realize how important Walt was, because he was not alive during my lifetime.
Right.
He was long gone. But seeing that gave me this deep connection with a part of Disney history that I didn't have, being born in 1979. And it was never lost on me, brother. Never.
I was lucky and had parents who collected the Disney VHS and Betamax when they first came out. And so Steamboat Willie was one of the first things on a shorts collection that Disney released. And it led me to the Disney shorts and the Silly Symphonies. And the Silly Symphonies blew me away. It was the Music Island one where they go to war and it's like the strings versus the brass. That and Steamboat Willie really set me on a path of going, this is what I love watching. Like, I'm cool. Tom and Jerry's out. Like, I 1, 2, 3, Electric Connection, whatever that was on PBS. Like, but I wanted to watch Mickey Mouse cartoons.
You and I universally agree that Steamboat Willie was probably number one. It was the first thing that we have to say. Of 100 Years of Wonder, both of us agreed that is perhaps the most important, if not one of the most important things that has happened in the Walt Disney Company in the last 100 years. It truly all started with the mouse. I know that there's some Oswald stands out there, and I get that. Oswald also has a very important place, but I'm sorry. While Oswald is on the timeline, he didn't earn a place for you and I in this particular episode. The second thing that we agreed, let's say number 2, before we get off, and we're going to take some tangents too, and we're going to revisit the timeline and do some of our favorites. The second one was Snow White, which is the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was the first full feature-length animated film, which premiered at Carthay Circle Theater in 1937. It was a masterpiece. To this very day, animation sort of draws and goes back to that film, that you look at the cells and you look at the style of animation, but also the time period with which that was released. Like, we're talking about the middle of the 30s. The United States is still very much in the throes of an economic depression, not the best time in American history. We're also talking about like pre-war America. This is right before the Great War and World War II. And I think that film not only holds a very special place in the history of the Walt Disney Company, but I think it's cinematic history and of just the history of this country, that in the midst of all of these things that were wrong with the world, out comes this beautiful film. And that's, again, what I think is so special about Disney is the cultural impact of this company to weather the times and multiple world wars, political upheaval, all kinds of strife. And the one constant that has provided magic for decades, for 100 years, is the Walt Disney Animation Studios and just Walt Disney as a company. And if you have to say, there's so many movies, dude, so many. But if there is a movie that you have to point back to and say how important it was for the future of Walt Disney Animation Studios, Snow White has to be at the top of that list. Regardless of if it's your favorite or not, it is so important to the history of this company and the period with which this film was produced and what it did in the 30s for animation.
Right. And if you talk about the history of Disney, this also was the first real animated film that came out, obviously, but it was the first one that parents connected to, that adults themselves connected to. It wasn't just for kids anymore. I do believe Disney himself actually wanted this to win an Academy Award for Best Picture. He wanted to be taken seriously enough that the Academy would put it in the Best Picture category. It never did. It did not win any Academy Award. He did win Special Academy Award for changing history, whatever that Special Academy Award is, with the 7 dwarves on there that Shirley Temple hands him. But it's the importance of Snow White. No, all this other stuff would probably have come, but it would not have come the way it did, and it would not have been from Walt Disney and have the heart behind it like this.
And I get it. A lot of people out there that are listening are probably pulling for their favorites, but Greg and I had to choose specific events from 100 years. And for us, it was for short. It wound up really being the most influential short was obviously Steamboat Willie, and then animated full feature length film was Snow White. But let's pull away from the timeline for a minute. Let's have a little fun. I told you we're going to do this. So let's do 3 quick favorites. Let's stay in this animated realm while we're on the topic. Do you have a favorite short? Is it aside from Steamboat, or is it Steamboat Willie?
No. So I have to list 2 because these 2 are my absolute favorite, and I can watch them over and over again. One is Lambert, the Sheepish Lion, which is just so brilliant and so well done. Please, everybody, check out Lambert, the Sheepish Lion. But my other favorite one that you don't see very much anywhere is Toot, Whistle, Plunk, and Boom. Do you remember?
I do.
It was so good. Like, these cavemen are like, one's like Boom, he like plays his stomach, and it goes through it's almost like Donald in mathematic land. It's just
also
so
good.
Hidden.
Also good.
Great. So the shorts I love are the off ones that most people look. Lambert is sitting there at Big Top Circus in the Magic Kingdom, and people pass him by and don't even realize who he is. And it has heart. It's such a Disney short. It's so good. So those are my 2 favorite. Do you have a favorite?
I do, and it was a hard call. I love all of the goofy how-tos from the 40s, like the how to skiing, how to play baseball, the Olympic champ, how to fish. Those were the ones as a child that made me laugh. But there is a short that is my definitive favorite because my favorite character, and I want to get to this with you too, is Donald Duck. I love Donald Duck. I don't know what it is about Donald. From childhood, I associated with him. Mickey was always too nice and too sweet for me. Donald was very realistic. He lost his temper. He wasn't perfect. He was rough around the edges, but he was also very lovable when push came to shove. So I loved, and there's so many of them with Chip and Dale and Donald, but my personal favorite is Winter Storage, when they're playing hockey with the acorns and Chip and Dale are trying to like squirrel away all of the acorns and Donald is trying to stop them. That is very much like chicken soup for the animated soul for me. Winter Storage is my all-time favorite, and I still watch it regularly. I bought it on iTunes, and I watch it constantly. But Donald Duck is my favorite. Who's your favorite animated character in all of this?
Wow, man, like that is so massive. If you think of all the characters. So again, I'm going to cheat.
You're cheating. You are cheating.
I am a Mickey Mouse stan, 100% hardcore. Like you people are like, I really love Mickey Mouse. He's just the consummate professional. He's the man. He's the myth. No. So if I think back to my childhood and who my favorites were, and it has progressed throughout my life, and I'm really lucky that I work for Chip and Company because Chip and Dale, them in Pluto's Christmas tree,
also good.
They're in like every little thing out there. It's something about Dale and just being that goofball and like everything. He's almost like the Three Stooges. Like he'd be Curly in the Three Stooges. He's just the guy that everything bad happens to, and like, but at the end, he always gets what he wanted, and it's always a victory story at the end. But yeah, Chip and Dale mean quite a lot to me, and yeah.
All right, so I'm going to make this even harder for you. In the 100 years of animated film, Pixar excluded, no Pixar allowed, do you have a favorite full feature-length animated? I know that you've said Snow White was your favorite princess in years past, but do you have a favorite film? Do you want me to go first while you think?
I want you to go first.
Okay.
That one, man, wow.
I said this to Jodie Benson. I meant every word of it. The Little Mermaid changed the game for me, and there is something about The Little Mermaid that to this day, it's the start of the Disney Renaissance. But that was really the movie that, I mean, and I had loved so many Disney films, but that movie stuck with me, continues to stick with me. I love the music of The Little Mermaid. A close second to that is Wreck-It Ralph. I love Wreck-It Ralph so much because I'm a gamer. I grew up in the 80s with the 8-bit gaming revolution, but I love the heart of Ralph. And I have always felt very connected to Ralph as like the misfit and the guy that just didn't quite fit into things. And I felt like the guy that was standing in the rubble pile watching kids in my life. I've always felt like the outcast. So I very much associate with him as a character. And now I'm cheating.
I have to. My brain just went blank when you said that. I do know what my favorite is, and it's very adamant what my favorite is. And there's nothing in this world I find better, and it could be my favorite movie of all time, and that simply is Fantasia. I don't know why I didn't go, oh, it's Fantasia.
Yeah,
it's Fantasia.
You've said this before. Yeah,
I have said this before, and I stick by this. Fantasia. Oh, it's just. If I could talk about just the technology behind it and how they brought quadraphonic sound out, and if you were in the right theater, like it would move around your head like you were in surround sound at the time. Now, obviously, it didn't have a center speaker, but it would go around your head. Stokowski and the Philadelphia Orchestra are the ones who do the music behind it. Recorded at the Academy of Music in Philadelphia. It is the ballet scene, not the flamingos, that's Fantasia too. The dancing alligators with the hippos. At the end, when you get the Chernabog, it's Mickey, it's Sorcerer Mickey. Everything about that movie is so mind-blowing and it's so beautiful. I hope people go and see Fantasia. There's not one spoken word. Even the nymphs or the pans or whatever they are, even those sequences are so beautiful. And it's what animation could have turned into. Like, obviously it turned into, we want movies to be like movies so people will relate to them. But having these artistic expressions of music and art together on film is simply stunning how they do that.
And people either get that one or they don't. Like, Fantasia can be very polarizing. Some people just don't get it. And it's too conceptual for some people. They're like, this is it? It's animation and classical music? Yes, get over it. Move on. If you don't, just move on. Hey, quick hit. I realized too that we really are hitting the fast forward button when it comes to animation technology. I just got to know this. Let's lump this one in. Pixar film. Now let's do Pixar. Mine's easy again. Inside Out, hands down. Love Inside Out. I am so psyched about Inside Out 2. I can't even tell you.
That is such a good choice. Okay, so I'm going to, again, there's not a lot of speaking in this one. Maybe I don't like humans. I don't know what it is. Wally. Everything about Wally speaks to me. Why do I care about two robots falling in love?
Because it's got a really good message.
Well, and then even at the end, when they come back to Earth or whatever the planet is, you think it's Earth.
It is Earth. It's Earth.
But coming back and just it's fighting over the planet, and it speaks to me a lot. I love Wally and Eve.
Good choice. Listen, good choice, my friend. All right, well, let's get back into the timeline. We are picking our most remarkable moments from 100 Years of Wonder. Greg, why don't you talk about this next event from 1952? You were the one that put this one on the map. I didn't even argue. I didn't even disagree, because it is a monumental moment in 100 Years of Wonder.
And when people realize how important this one event is, and it leads to so much else. So Wed Enterprises was created in 1952. It was actually named after Walter Elias Disney. He broke apart the company and just made an offshoot of the company. Wed Enterprises incorporated as a subsidy of Walt Disney Productions. Wed was personally owned by Walt Disney himself, 1952 to 1965. What is Wed Enterprises? Just think of the word Imagineer. Walt Disney
Elias Disney
turned into the Walt Disney Imagineering. You would not have these rides that are out there. You would not have. And look, what's the most important thing Wed Enterprises did? Let's just one. Disneyland in 1955 is from Wed Enterprises.
And that was another one of our remarkable moments in history. But without Wed, you don't have Disneyland. You don't have Imagineering. You don't have audio animatronics. Wed is the magic behind the magic in all of these parks. You do not have a Walt Disney Company without Wed. It is, I mean, we've been solely talking almost about like studios and animation, but so much of the Walt Disney Company goes beyond the silver screen, and Disney has become a very tangible part of people's lives, and the parks are that expo for Disney magic to be on full display. I love the story of Walt Disney having the epiphany, watching his daughter playing on the carousel, realizing, I can do this. I need to do this. I need to make a place for families and for kids, but for adults to feel like children again and to suspend their disbelief, to let all of their troubles go. And he said this in an interview, like Disney adult is a new moniker, people think. Disney adults have dated all the way back to the 1950s, where Disney even said, I want children of all ages to come to this park and to forget their troubles and to come here and to be a kid again. And the magic behind that is Wed, that those Imagineers have been making those dreams come true for people for decades now. That is one of the most critical pieces of 100 Years of Wonder, dude. Knocked it right out.
One thing I
park.
do want to mention also in that, Mark, because you just said it so well and very succinct. You talk about Disney adulting. Disney was an adult when all this came around. He created a train, a backyard train that actual kids and adults could ride on, which led to obviously Disneyland, which led to all this other stuff. Wed comes from his backyard train. And that's why I always talk about how important the train is at Disneyland or at Walt Disney World. It's because it really started with a mouse and a train. Like those two things are so important. And Wed Enterprises comes from Disney building the train. And he took the guys who helped him actually build the steam engine itself, who built the tracks. Those guys are the ones who became Wed Enterprises.
And let's fast forward again 3 years. So we're talking about 1952 when Wed is founded, and Walter Elias Disney personally owned Wed until 1965 when he reincorporated it as part of the company at large. But let's fast forward to 1955. You had a chance again for the first time in your living memory to be able to visit Disneyland. Do you not just still continue to feel the spirit of Walter Elias Disney in that park? There is something that is still so magical about Disneyland over in Anaheim that sets it apart. You know how much, like, again, I love Disney World. It's my home. There's just something so beautiful and magical and unique about that park, that castle, that Main Street, that partner statue. It can't be explained. It needs to be felt. And unless you're there and you felt it, it's really hard to qualify what it means to be in Disneyland.
There's a ghost at Disneyland.
999 of them in some parts.
Which you could join them if you want. There's the ghost of Walt Disney in that park. And it's really easy for me to lose myself in my daydreaming or my imagination of walking in that park the first time and knowing that Walt Disney himself would come down while people were in the park and just hang out, eat a thing of popcorn. He would go on the rides. He would give personal tours around the park. But then he would stay in his apartment, and when everybody went home, it was like it was his home. He would go out there, and this was his backyard. This is where he got to play and Imagineer and think of the future and think what he wanted done, which led to Walt Disney World. So as a Disney Worlder, it's really beautiful and it's over romanticized, and I'm okay with that.
Is it though?
No, it's not.
It's not. I think you're being unfair. I
sat there for a few minutes on a park just a bench in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle and was way over emotional thinking of those things.
It's not over romanticized.
His ghost is there, and it's alive, and it's wonderful.
It's pretty spot on. All right, man, you're up with the next event. I took Disneyland and thank you for leaving me that one. Disneyland in 1955 in 100 Years of Wonder has to be on the timeline as one of the most notable things in the 100 years of Disney here in our 100th episode on the Chip and Company Podcast Network.
So in 1961, Walt and Roy Disney bought two different university colleges at the time, design colleges, and combined them together to become CalArts, or California Institute of the Arts. This CalArts, if you have watched a Disney movie, any Disney movie since 1963 on, one person has obviously, no matter what, been from CalArts. This is they're the ones who have the animation program. Disney himself would send his artist to college to get a degree and to learn new animation styles, or to learn how to draw or do art or paint or whatever better. And he would pay for these people to go to CalArts. CalArts is really important for the rest of the history of the Walt Disney Company for the next 100 years.
And Disney as a company placed this, they turned this into a science, and it's art. Quite literally, it is art. But Disney and his company and Wed, they turned animation, they turned Imagineering into a science of these men and women have continued to push the envelope, and it has paid dividends, not just in Disney films, but in the medium. And George Lucas is very much the same way, that what Skywalker Ranch did and what those guys did over there was to push the medium of film and filmmaking and animation forward. And this is such, again, a very forgotten moment in Disney history, but that CalArts program and that founding of CalArts in 1961, we're still getting dividends from that. That was such a monumental moment in all of this, that all of these films and all of this animation really can go back to that Disney started to train these people and had these programs where these people got very practical hands-on training in developing these films. Awesome stuff, man.
I was trying to bring up the people who graduated from CalArts and the producers, the people. I think they're up to like a few hundred Oscars they've won between music production, audio, lights, sound, directing, screenwriters, playwriters. Like it's so many people that I couldn't even sit there. Like there is thousands of real artists out there that have graduated from CalArts. So CalArts leads to more stuff that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But Marc, you take the next one, and this one leads to a whole lot of talk about the parks.
Well, for those people who know me best, you know the space that this holds in my heart. There are so many rides. There are so many attractions. There are so many notable moments in the parks ecosystem and in the parks history. It is darn near impossible to highlight just one. And so Greg and I were tasked with trying to do just that. And so we chose June 23rd, 1963, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room opens at Disneyland because, Greg, that was the first use of these new audio animatronic technology. Disney said, our birds are going to breathe. I want them to look real and I want them to look realistic. The Enchanted Tiki Room holds, again, there's a mythos around it. There is a feeling of Walt in that Tiki Room. And I know that you didn't have a chance to do it. It's so special sitting there. I had tears welling up in my eyes. I've watched the Enchanted Tiki Room. I can't even tell you how many times. I have the Tiki Room studio behind me because it is that moment as a kid that I remember more than anything else, more than any other thing at Disney World. I remember being in the Enchanted Tiki Room with my parents, with my father. And my father is he's a pretty grounded person. He's not a man that has a song in his heart and walks around singing. Like, he's a very serious guy. He grew up very quickly. He lost his father when he was very young. So my dad is a very serious guy. And when he would leave the Enchanted Tiki Room and then for almost the remainder of the day sing in the Tiki, 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 Tiki Room and like fool around with me, it was just a happy spot for me. And it's a real good, like, speaking of Inside Out, it's a good core memory for me. But the place that the Enchanted Tiki Room has in the history and the development of audio animatronic technology cannot be denied. It is the first use of audio animatronics in parks, and they have obviously gone on and grown to now the very sophisticated and complex audio animatronics in the Shaman over at in the Navi River Journey, and what you see over at Rise of the Resistance. We owe all of those advancements back to the Tiki Birds, who continue to sing their melody in both parks, and it just holds a very special place in my heart, but also in the history and the genesis of what these parks would become.
That is, let's just talk about what happened the following year. And this isn't part of this, but we got the 1964
we've got it.
World Fair that came next. And look what happened because of the Tiki Room. You had Mr. Lincoln. You had Small World. But that led to Pirates, which led to Hall of Presidents, which led to Haunted Mansion, which led to this new Frozen opening up in Shanghai, where we just witnessed the audio animatronics for that. And it's just so stunning what this has all come from. And it all comes from a bird. Yeah. Like, seriously. So here's a weird question. Do you have a favorite bird? I have a favorite bird at Walt Disney World's Tiki Room.
It's Jose.
It's weird.
Dude. It's Jose.
Yeah. Well, how could it not be?
Michael is a close second, though.
Yeah, all of them are amazing. Yeah, I don't know. There's a blue bird in the Walt Disney World. I always sit under it. I'm like, that's my favorite bird. So I finally got to mention him on the air. I can call him and let him know. Michael is very good.
All right. So again, let's jump out of the timeline for a quick second. Since we've been spending a few minutes over in parks, your favorite ride could be something that we haven't talked about yet. What's your favorite ride? Just got to know.
Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot. At either park.
I'm going
to go Haunted Mansion.
Haunted Mansion.
And it has to be. Look, when we're out in Disneyland, we did the holiday overlay of Nightmare Before Christmas. But still, you get the point of what Haunted Mansion is all about.
It's a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. Yeah, look, I would love to say Rise of the Resistance is my favorite ride because of how brilliant it is. I would love to say Guardians of the Galaxy. But what I'm looking at is what everything comes from. And what everything comes from is, and be honest with you, it's a Small World out in Disneyland and Haunted Mansion overlay. They changed how I view rides. So it's either one of those two you can pick. Everybody out there, you pick Small World or whatever. It's from Disneyland. It's up to you.
Now, I realize, too, we haven't quite gotten to the Florida project, but what's your favorite park icon? I just got to know. Since we're in parks right now, what's your favorite icon?
Spaceship Earth.
I like that. That's a good call.
I have no other reason. Oh, no, I do have many, many reasons why.
You like the golf ball?
I love the golf. I'm telling you, Mark, I almost crashed my car when the LEDs went on for the first time. And I was driving back from Magic Kingdom and they lit up the sky. And I happened to be driving and just looked over and I had to pull over and just go, this is going to be the most amazing icon. But it goes back to childhood. I remember going in 1983. Look, we're coming up on the 40th anniversary in less than 2 weeks.
Yes.
I remember being there in 1983, not opening. It was later. It was probably, I think it was December. And actually it was probably December 23rd around then. Because my parents would go at that time every year. But I remember walking through Epcot, and I don't even know if the ball was there. I just remember that is what I remember as a child, is seeing that. And then coming back to it, yeah, Cinderella Castle is beautiful. Sleeping Beauty Castle is beautiful. They're all amazing.
They really
but
are.
There's something about Spaceship Earth and how it looks now. Even how it looked, like you can go, this is weird. Okay, follow me for a second.
Okay.
You can go into the front entrance of Epcot. And if the sky is crystal clear, it's that beautiful winter blue sky you get. It looks like it's 2D. It looks like it's a painting in front of you. But then if you have a cloudy day in the background, it looks like it's popping out at you in this 3D. Oh my, it's magical how it pops out of the sky visually. And then you have the music that surrounds it. And then you find out that I can go inside this and learn about the history of the world. And I can,
yes.
It's just so fantastic. Everything about Spaceship Earth is childhood. It's now. I love going to Epcot right now. I could go to Epcot every day if I had to. And I have gone probably 100 times this year alone just to Epcot. And every time I am in awe and wonder of Spaceship Earth.
I agree.
What is your favorite?
I agree. I'm going to join you for all of the reasons. I'm not going to belabor the point that you said everything that I want to say about Spaceship Earth and then some. So it is the park icon that I feel like I commune with regularly as well. It's harder to commune with Cinderella's Castle because it's crowded, but there's something about that hub that it's not as crowded as sort of the hub grass area, that you can sit and stare very calmly and spend a quiet moment with Spaceship Earth.
So beyond that, we get back to our timeline here, Mark.
Yes, sir.
1964 and 65 are
big,
huge years. So I'm going to talk about one, and it's Mary Poppins. Live action and animation mixed together. Is it Julie Andrews? I don't. You know me on entertainment. I'm horrible with names.
We're good. Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
Okay, Julie Andrews, and I almost said Burt Bacharach.
Dick Van Dyke. Okay, I'm taking this from you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm handing it over. I'm sitting back. So Mary Poppins, 1964. Mark, penguins.
So
rooftops, Mary Chimchurri.
Yes, Mary Poppins has obviously been the subject of other films. You have Mary Poppins. It spawned a sequel featuring Emily Blunt. But there's something special about Mary Poppins, and people can see the work and the dedication that went into making that film happen. The labor of love that it was for Walt Disney, the way that he crafted that film, how much of himself he put into that film, the Sherman Brothers and what they did in that film. It's just... There's something so special about the film itself. Directed by Robert Stevenson. Walt Disney obviously produced it himself. But the film has come to exemplify what Disney filmmaking is all about. There are tons of films that precede it. There are tons of films that came after. But there's something emotional and special about Mary Poppins that you felt Walt's fingers and his fingerprints all over that film. Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke have spoken about the experience that they had on that film. And it is a film that, again, spans generations. Our parents introduced it to us. We have introduced it to our children. And no matter how old you are, there's something about the magic of Mary Poppins that speaks to one generation after another, whether it hits Step in Time or it's, listen.
Mark, I'm back from flying a kite and I want to add something here.
Go ahead.
So let's talk about the Academy Awards, just one film won. Obviously, Best Original Score, Best Visual Effects, Best Film Editing, Best Director, Best Original Score, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Sound Mixing, Best Costume Design, Best Production, Best Cinematographer. Not only that, but Best Actress and Best Picture.
Bravo.
So there you go. That's Mary Poppins. It's just so important. Maybe we'll see a Mary Poppins exhibit one day, or attraction one day.
I think that Mary Poppins exhibit was victimized by the pandemic, but also a somewhat lackluster response for the sequel. I think if the response to the sequel had been more overwhelming, I think that Disney would have pressed forward with it. But I think it gave them pause in a time of frugality when they had all these parks closed. They thought to themselves, are we really going to go forward and put together a Mary Poppins ride now? I do hope that it comes back. I think Great Britain would definitely be served with something there. And I think Mary Poppins should go there. I hope that they bring that concept back. But it looks like as of right now, man, it's been shelved indefinitely.
I love that movie, by the way.
I do
what
too.
Was her
Feed
her
the
name?
Birds?
No, what was her name?
Julie
in
Edgers?
Mary Poppins too. No.
Oh, Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt.
And
She's
Lin-Manuel
married to that guy,
Miranda.
Krasinski, right?
Yeah.
Go-
and
Figure four.
She's married to Mr. Incredible. You are horrible with entertainment names. I'm so sorry.
I'm the worst. Why did I take that one? Please, you take the next one.
Well, you've already talked about these, but let's revisit them because they bear repeating. But the World's Fair in April 22nd of 1964 was so instrumental in the future of the Walt Disney Company, where Disney was tasked with providing 4, not 1, but 4 exhibits for the World's Fair over in New York. You already talked about Small World. You already talked about Mr. Lincoln and Autotopia. And of course, we haven't even talked about yet the Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow that Walt Disney promised in the Carousel of Progress.
I love John Morrow.
These 4 rides were an exhibition to the wonderment of what Disney was doing and what Wed was doing. And those rides became staples not only of the park, but again, there was something about that World's Fair that it was like an ambassadorship that Walt Disney was putting on display for the entire world of the things that Disney was doing and the way that they were changing theme parks and that ecosystem. No longer were people thinking of these theme parks as dirty places that were carnivals with just the most horrific conditions, and it was like a seedy place that you just didn't want to be. Disney changed the entire industry and flipped it upside down on its head, and he showed people what was happening in these parks was, again, not just something that was magical, but they had taken the science of audio animatronics and ride construction, and they had turned it up levels beyond what I think the world had even expected. And that World's Fair was so important, again, in the history and the development of Disney parks and of audio animatronics and what Disney was doing and what Wed was doing. 1964 was such a big year. And then on the cusp of that in 1965, Greg, we have to talk about the next thing, which Walt came right from his mouth.
Which is simple, the Florida Project. The Florida Project ends up becoming Walt Disney World Resorts. Walt himself was flying over Florida looking for a place to put a new park. And he basically looked at Central Florida. He saw the highways and went, I want that piece of land. He sent out his team to go out and create small little companies to buy up acres and acres of land. Ended up being, if I'm correct, Mark, 43 square miles is how big Walt Disney World Resort is. And you have your hand up because you want to say something.
No, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So many people look at that speech and Walt talking about the Florida Project and saying what he had intended for it. Do you think that Walt would be proud of Walt Disney World and what it's become?
I do. I really do. I think there's certain things that he would be really astonished and amazed and proud of. I think Animal Kingdom happens to be one of them. I think what Joe Rohde did was in it was in what Disney wanted in a theme park. People are able to go there. The theming was so well done. I think he'd be proud to see what Fantasyland looks like. I think he'd be proud to see all the open space that he has, and people can move around. And if he wanted to, he could build whatever he wanted to, and he has the space and the energy to do it. I don't think he'd be proud of Epcot, because
that's
his
where I was
ideals
getting,
were a bit dreamer-esque.
Okay.
They were not like, you couldn't create that type of world. That's politics, everything around that does not allow for that type of community to work. And it's unfortunate, but no, I think he would look at it and go, okay, well, that's not what I had in mind, but you know what? It's good. I think that he'd be a little upset that it lost its way, and it lost its way really quickly compared to what Walt Disney himself imagined. Look, there's that story of him sitting in his bed when he was older and he was about to pass away. And Roy is sitting there at the end of his, rubbing his feet. And Walt is sitting there and looking at the ceiling, and he has a map of Epcot in his head, and he's trying to explain every little detail to Roy. I don't think that dream happened, but I do think he would have adapted, and he would have overcome a whole lot of these ideas and gone, okay, well, we have to change. It was just in the initial stages for him. I think he'd be really proud of Walt Disney World. I think he'd be proud to have his name attached to almost any of the worlds out there.
Yeah.
But I think Walt Disney World itself, I think it would look a little different, but I think he'd be really proud of Animal Kingdom. He'd be really happy the hotels. He'd be really happy of in the land itself. Looks beautiful and is a wonderful family. It's a family place, man. Like,
I agree.
Come here and it's family. So.
I agree. All right, so let's jump out of our timeline. Let's play a little bit with the expansion, the concept of expansion. Speaking of all of the resorts that we have, I'm going to allow you to include these. I know that you didn't stay at them. You got a good look at them though. What's your favorite resort? Just curious. Of all of the Disney properties here in the United States, we haven't gotten in the timeline. We haven't expanded internationally yet. So let's just stick with resort inside of the continental U.S. What's your favorite? I know where you're going to go with this one, and I support it.
Disney's Contemporary Resort.
Boom. Go ahead, man. I love it.
There's no reason to even say anything else. I've never once stayed at the Contemporary. I go into the Contemporary 3 times a week. I park at the Contemporary when I can. I love the Contemporary. The idea of how it was built and how each room was kind of set into place, almost like he was playing Tetris with it.
Yes.
But the building has history. The Mary Blair, the murals in there.
Yes.
The fifth-legged goat. I don't know what it is, Mark, but somehow Disney and goats and me all work together. I love Disney goats.
You just love the goats, dude.
I love the goats.
So,
Marvel, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so a Contemporary, man. What's yours?
Well, so we grew up, we didn't have any money growing up. And staying at a Disney resort was just never in the cards for us. The first time we ever stayed at a Disney resort, I was out of high school, and it was our family's last real big vacation that we ever took before I went off to college. And then by the time I got out of college, my sister was graduating. We never had that moment again. Like, this was it. This was our last family vacation. We stayed at the beach club. But growing up, going through the Contemporary and passing by on the monorail, it was the little doggy in the window for me, just fogging up the glass and staring at that hotel. I just remember being so impressed by that hotel. I will tell you that having stayed at the Polynesian is probably pound for pound my favorite, just because it's such an enjoyable experience. But if we're going from the sense of history and nostalgia and throughout the course of my life, it is the Contemporary, because that was the typical resort that I associated with Walt Disney World more so than any other resort. It was the Contemporary. So I will join you on that hill. Although I'm cheating a little bit. I have like the asterisks of it's the Poly. It's the Poly for me. All right.
I've been in every one. I could list others that I love, but to me, like, if you say Walt Disney World, that's the monorail going through it.
Going right through. I agree.
I'm a romantic about Disney sometimes. So.
I agree. The Disneyland Hotel is up there for me too. The history of the Disneyland Hotel is right there. What is your favorite park food? There's so many.
I love stuffing my mouth with wieners from Award Wieners. I don't know. Okay. Favorite food.
Yes. I'm going to go first. Let me go first while you think.
Yeah, you go, because, wow, I've eaten at a lot of you. So have you. So go ahead.
East Coast versus West Coast. My East Coast, my favorite food overall is the Dole Whip. The Dole Whip is the signature. Do not feed me a churro at Walt Disney World. I will throw it out. It is gross. But the churro at Disneyland is probably my favorite overall food of, if I could get my hands on a churro out there. I like a Dole Whip out there too, but the churros out there, they're very nice.
I love them because they're good. I don't know. I went back to the Pirates.
They're
All right, I'm going to cheat.
All right.
In Disney World, during Princess Week a few years ago, they came out with this delicate lemon, beautiful. It was
You're cheating, though. You're
lemon
cheating.
tart, and it was only available for a few weeks. It was so delicate,
gone.
And beautiful, and
You can't get it anymore.
So, Disneyland, Mark. I am going back to the hot dogs, though. This made such an impression on me, and I'm glad I got to share it with you and Chip, because it changed my life on how a hot dog should be presented. But the panko crusted pickled hot dog. It's a hot dog,
corn dog
inside of a pickle, then corn dogged, and then pankoed with a side of peanut butter sauce. It changed my life on hot dogs.
It's a big dog with knobs, and it's got the juice. I wonder if that'll age well. 10 years from now, people are going to be like, what? What?
It's corn.
It's corn dog.
It's corn dog. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm simple. Like, I have cupcakes all the time, and I love some Dole Whip. But here, Dole Whip's like ice cream. You can just get it everywhere. So it loses a little bit of its value.
Well, you get it all the time.
One of these princess cupcakes that's only around for a week, and then they don't bring it back for a few years, and you taste it, and you're like, I need to have this every day. I need to figure out how to make it. It's a beautiful cupcake. It's a beautiful tart.
And the $1 million question, we're going to hit the pause button on the timeline. We obviously have months to go with 100 Years of Wonder, so we're going to hit pause on the timeline. We will be back in another episode. This is going to become a series that we have just done the first few years of 100 Years of Wonder. But the $1 million question now is, I have to know, what is your favorite park? You've been to all 6 parks in the United States. Favorite park?
Oh my gosh. I really want to say.
Do it. Come on. You want to come to the dark side. Come on.
It's the Magic Kingdom.
No, you're a liar. You are.
I was going to say Epcot.
You lie.
Epcot really is, but no. Mark, there's a reason I cover Disney. When I round that corner of Town Square, right around the Main Street Confectioner, and you turn and you look at the direction of Cinderella Castle, there is nothing in this world that touches me emotionally like that castle. And yes, Disneyland is spectacular and wonderful, and the history of Walt, but the Magic Kingdom, buddy, it's beautiful. You have that castle, and then you put on Happily Ever After, those two things together, and you're eating a Dole Whip, or and you're hanging out with your family. There's nothing. Disneyland, yes, Disneyland.
We are a nation divided here at Dis Life Podcast because I am choosing Disneyland. I love Disneyland. It is pure. It is amazing. It is pure Disney bliss. So we are leaving this first part of 100 Years of Wonder as a podcast divided. Stick with us, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back as we continue our tour of the timeline of 100 Years of Disney. Congratulations to the Chip and Company Podcast Network on 100 episodes of your own. Greg, anything you want to say before we sign off here for the rest of the day?
What do you call a pirate? What do you...
You lost it.
What do pirates wear in the winter?
What, Greg?
Long johns. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Try the buffet. Enjoy the wine.
And Greg,
stick around for Louis Anderson. Louis coming up next. and then followed by a Carrot Top. We're going to be doing Carrot Top impressions. Oh, I love him. Carrots are good. They keep away the vitamin C. I mean, the scurvy with I need vitamin C and lemons. I need lemons, Mark. Yar.
And Greg will be here all week as a part of the Chip and Company Podcast Network. Tune in for the best of Disney parks, Disney news and review and company, and of course, Park Extra. Congratulations, Greg. Congratulations, Chip. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. To everyone out there in Dis Life Land, as always, we hope the rest of the week is filled with faith, trust, and pixie dust. We'll see you real soon. Bye, everybody. Dis Life Podcast is brought to you by the Happiness is Addictive collection. Happiness is Addictive is passionate about spreading laughter and creating smiles worldwide. They love bringing their global community together through optimism, cheer, hopefulness, merriment, and celebrating life's magical moments. They know how important it is to celebrate life's adventures, and their apparel will give you everlasting, one-of-a-kind memories through pixie-dusted family photos, compliments from park guests, and magical moments with cast members. They pride themselves on high-quality, custom-made apparel at competitive prices with world-class service. Let them help you create a lifetime of memories, whether you're Disney bounding, kicking it poolside, participating in Run Disney marathons, having costumed adventures, or just living your best Disney life. You can find their Happiness is Addictive shop on Etsy. You can also find them on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Pinterest. They are proud to be featured in Indy Central Florida, the Thoughtful Gift Club, and now here on Dis Life Podcast. Their collection was founded by a 15-year former cast member who knows how to enhance your magical moments for a lifetime of memories with your family. Don't forget to use promo code DISLIFE15 to take an extra 15% off. What are you waiting for? Head over to Etsy and start getting happy today. Follow the link in our show notes and you'll find out for yourself that happiness is addictive.